I'm Jackie Stokes, Marketing Programs Manager for Siemens Industry USA, welcoming you to another Siemens How2Drive video with the goal of helping you better understand and work with Siemens variable frequency drives and related motion control products. Manufacturers looking to migrate older drives to newer ones are often concerned about disrupting legacy automation systems and networks. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how easy it is to migrate an old Allen Bradley drive on remote I/O to a new SINAMICS drive from Siemens without having to touch the PLC code. First, let me describe the hardware used in this demonstration. There's an Allen Bradley PLC5, a discontinued Allen Bradley drive, a Bulletin 1305, a SINAMICS G120 general purpose drive, remote I/O network in blue, an Allen Bradley remote I/O communication module, an Ethernet to remote I/O gateway, an Ethernet switch, a motor, and push buttons and selector switches for operating the drives. Right now, the Allen Bradley 1305 drive is controlled by the PLC5 over the remote I/O network. First, I'll demonstrate an Allen Bradley drive running on Allen Bradley remote I/O, also known as Blue Hose or RIO, with an Allen Bradley PLC5. The selector switch is set for VFD1 for the Allen Bradley drive. I push Start to start the drive. There are different speed set points that are controlled with this switch: low speed, medium speed, and high speed set points. This is a diagram of what the current system looks like. But let's say this drive fails, or we proactively replace this drive because it's obsolete and it's running a critical process, or maybe we want to collect additional data with a new drive. Because we have an old PLC and old network, it's usually not going to be easy to upgrade. However, we've developed a simple solution to replace this drive with a new SINAMICS drive, keeping in place the PLC5 and remote I/O network. We've made it very simple by doing the engineering work for you, so all you must do is follow a few steps. First, you'll need a new SINAMICS drive. In this case, we're using our most popular general purpose drive, the SINAMICS G120. You'll also need this Ethernet to remote I/O gateway for each drive you are replacing. And then follow these two steps. First, start up the new drive, the SINAMICS G120, and configure the Ethernet to remote I/O gateway. Complete a quick startup of the SINAMICS drive, as you normally would with any new drive. Get it talking to the motor, tune the drive, and set the IP address. The G120 has a commissioning wizard on the operator interface, or you could use the free SINAMICS Start Drive software. For the purposes of this demonstration, the drive has already been commissioned. Next, in order for the SINAMICS drive to be a drop-in replacement for this Allen Bradley drive, we need to ensure that certain drive parameters, such as speed reference, speed feedback, current feedback, and command and status words are scaled appropriately to match the replaced drive. Normally, this would involve referencing user manuals for both drives and setting individual parameters accordingly. However, the Ethernet to remote I/O gateway that was co-developed by SoftPLC Corporation and Siemens does this translation for you. The final step is to configure the Ethernet to remote I/O gateway. This is done via a browser-based interface where you will be prompted to answer a few questions about your system. To access the gateway, connect your computer to the device and enter the default IP address of the gateway, 192.168.1.100, into the browser. Now you will see the configuration screen. On the left-hand side, there are 4 screens to go through: Ethernet, Allen Bradley settings, nameplate data, and Siemens programming. The first screen asks you to configure the IP address. Here, you have the opportunity to change the IP address and the subnet mask of the gateway module. For this demonstration, I'll just leave it at the default settings. Next, you can enter the default router IP address. This is needed for advanced routing. And finally, enter the new SINAMICS drive IP address. Keep in mind that the subnet of the drive and gateway must match for operation. When performing the simple startup of the SINAMICS drive, be sure to set the field bus parameter, parameter 2030, to Ethernet IP. Most SINAMICS drives, including the G120, can communicate over Profinet or Ethernet IP by simply changing one parameter. After you're finished with the Ethernet settings, you'll need to enter the Allen-Bradley settings. First, set the gateway's remote I/O baud rate to match the network configuration. This information is found in the Allen-Bradley PLC program in Channel Configuration under the channel's baud rate. Enter yes or no if there is a Rio terminator resistor. In this case, we enter yes. Enter the rack address. This is the I/O rack address range the PLC programming is using to send and receive data from the drive. This information can be found in the Allen-Bradley PLC program in Channel Configuration. Select the Allen-Bradley drive model you wish to replace. You can see the options include variations of the 1336 drive, 1305, 2 DC drives, the 1395 and 1397, as well as variations of the PowerFlex 70 and PowerFlex 700 drives. After you select your drive, enter the rack size. This refers to the amount of data that's being transferred to and from the existing AB drive. If you don't already know your rack size, you can find this information under Channel Configuration in the PLC program. Now it's time to select the Rio words. This is where you can select potential data links that were set up between the drive and PLC. Data links are additional parameters that the PLC program may use to control the drive. These are referred to on the web page as rack X, where rack indicates the mapped rack address, and X is the word number in the PLC data block for that rack. If the Allen-Bradley drive has block transfers turned on, the rack 0 should be set for block transfer. Selecting this maps the command and status bits and speed reference and speed feedback words to 1 and 2. Most drives should be configured for the first word as command and status and the second word as speed reference and speed feedback. You can see if there are additional parameters being sent between the Allen-Bradley drive and PLC by looking at the drive's parameter list. This is an example of such a parameter list. Data in and data out parameters are the parameters in the drive that indicate what additional data, above speed and command words, are being transmitted and received from the PLC. If this is the case for the drive you're replacing, you will need to set these parameters in the gateway. Exactly how to do this is outlined in the user manual we provide. A link to this manual is included in the description below. Once you finish entering the remote I/O words, you can go to the motor nameplate page. Notice, in this case, additional information is not needed. However, sometimes there are differences between how parameters are scaled, percentages versus actual values, and you will be prompted to input drive current, motor current, etc. For example, if we go back and select output power in kilowatts, we can see that the interface is prompting us for the motor-rated power. The last step is the Siemens programming page. This shows you which parameters need to be set in the SINAMICS drive. For this configuration, I need to set parameters 1055 for jog speed 1 and 1056 for jog speed 2. And that's it. You can click Save to save the configuration. Going back to the demo hardware, we've just configured the Ethernet to remote I/O gateway, and performed a simple startup of the SINAMICS drive so it's talking with the motor. We need to set a few key drive parameters, which was indicated on the soft PLC web configuration, which you can quickly do on the keypad. I will set parameter 1055 to 2090 and parameter 1056 to 2090. Now all that's left to do is make a few connections and we'll be up and running. The drive is ready. Next, move the remote I/O plug from the Allen-Bradley Rio communication module to the Ethernet to remote I/O gateway. When I move this cable, the Allen-Bradley 1305 is no longer communicating with the PLC5. Once the cable is connected to the gateway, the G120 and PLC5 are communicating on the remote I/O network. Let's ensure our Ethernet cables are connected to the switch. We have one from the gateway to the switch and one from the G120 to the switch. Now we'll turn the selector switch to VFD2 for the G120 and press Start. The G120 is now being controlled by the PLC5 over the remote I/O network. A significant benefit of this solution is the gateway is designed specifically to replace obsolete Allen Bradley drives with new SINAMICS drives with little effort. There's no major conversion hurdles, and you do not have to touch the PLC code. This solution can be used to migrate Allen Bradley drives on remote I/O networks. The drives that can be replaced are shown on the screen. Technical information can be found on our Siemens online support website. You can find the links in the description below this video. If you would like to learn more, a good place to start is usa.siemens.com/drives-rio. And of course, you can contact your local Siemens distributor or account manager. Thank you very much for watching, and please drive carefully.